Hey, this is Jeff with the Castle. Thanks for joining me back here. Today I've got Zach online. He goes by Wandering Pilgrim. I wanted to talk to him today a little bit about how he engages with his community and how he talks about mental health on his stream and off of the stream. It's a topic that he's passionate about, so I'm curious to hear some of his thoughts on it. After the interview, we put Pilgrim up against the speed run. And a quick tip from Joey Freeze, one of the great streamers, coming up on a future episode. Zach, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you talk to your community, because it seems to be a big part of what you do. You spend a lot of time trying new things to engage with the community. Is that something that's always been important to you when you were streaming, or is that something that developed as you went along?
Kind of both.
Okay.
It was something that was always important to me. Part of the whole experience with streaming is the live interaction and such. So that's a very integral part. It developed as I've had my skills developing, and I acquired more and more like regulars who would chat as well as lurk at times and stuff, because love my lurkers, but you can't really chat. I mean, you can talk your thoughts out, but you can't really chat if nobody's chatting. So that's one of those deals.
Lurkers, I think, are very important, though I always appreciate that they're there, but it's more valuable. I'd rather have a low number of viewers, but a lot of those folks that are in there talking rather than having a big viewer count and having nobody talking. It's just, I think at the affiliate level, kind of where we're at, that's so much more rewarding to me.
Yeah, and also, of course, there's a differentiation between maybe a higher viewer count, but folks that are actually like watching but might be doing homework or something on the
Yeah.
computer, or as opposed to either empty follows where somebody's got a tab up but they're not checking out any of it at all, or the worst part of it, the whole follow bot thing and all that kind of stuff, if that's at play.
The whole follow for follow thing. Did you
Yeah,
get people to reach out about that one?
that or the actual like bot accounts, which that's I guess less of
Oh,
a
yeah.
problem now than it used to be, but yeah.
I see the bot accounts in my channel. They seem to be the ones that are pulling stats, not so much the ones that are... I don't get a lot of spam bots or anything like that.
Shout outs to Commander Root.
I think that was my first follower. I had no idea what it was at the time.
Yeah, same.
Did you watch a lot of streams before you started streaming yourself? Like, were you pretty active on Twitch as a viewer?
Oh, yeah. No, I did primarily lurk. I didn't really engage in chats much, aside from a few rare occasions, until probably maybe a year and a half ago. But yeah, I had been watching Twitch since, oh God, I want to say 2013, 2014. So it's been a
Really?
while. Yeah.
Did you start with the big names? Were you watching like the big timer streamers then?
I was watching folks that had pretty good numbers. You would consider them like larger, but
Yeah.
nothing like, I guess, ninja levels or summit or whatever. I think my first one was this guy that goes by Master Kiz. He still streams occasionally, but he's actually kind of taken a break for a bit. And he was originally known for like the Borderlands 2 content, but he got burnt out on that. Tried out Dark Souls for the first time and then really fell in love with that. And that was where I got exposed to Dark Souls, actually.
No kidding. I don't know that I've actually seen you play Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Certainly seen you play other ones. Bloodborne, obviously. I think I've caught you play Dark Souls 3. I don't remember, though.
My main Dark Souls 3 stuff was offline, of course. Like that was whenever
Right.
I was actually holed up recovering from an injury. So, but there's a series I wanted to start for a while now, starring the mascot of the channel, who's not exactly fully established as the mascot yet, but the grin emote that I have is supposed to be him. Basically, it's the Adventures of Ribbert McFrog, and it's going to be all the like Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, and maybe beyond. But
Really?
yeah, and that would be a chance to have that up on stream. And I was gonna like RP it, like I have a voice for the character and make it like it's from his perspective, and because of that I won't have a camera up because it's supposed to be their adventure. I'm being Ribbert essentially, so that's
No kidding.
yeah, that's kind of roughly what I have planned for it, and there might be some other little things I want to throw in there. Tentatively want to try to start it in June, but we'll see how many pieces are ready to go by that point. So I might have to push it into July, but early June's the plan for now.
You sent me the picture of the character.
Ribbert McFrog.
Right. It was a terrifying picture. Just
It was a meme character that Papalati and Helionway, they show up in the stream from time to time, but they came up with him, and then I perfected it basically.
the science.
Pretty much.
This is something that you just recently completed a run of Bloodborne, and it was a lore-focused run, and you had dressed up to get that Victorian look. There's a couple things that you're trying that way in terms of giving a different experience, making it more of a show than just sitting down and playing a game. Is this something that you've seen other streamers do and you've taken inspiration, or is that just sort of something you came up with yourself and your community?
Both, really. There were some streamers I've seen who've done that kind of a thing occasionally. Like Lobos Jr., for example, he did a Diva cosplay as part of like a charity. I mean, he
Oh
was raising
my.
money for charity, so like he had the makeup and the whole 9 yards with it, and that kind of.
Okay.
I think he even had some emotes at that point in time that were made from it because it went over so well. That kind of a thing, but also I don't know. It seemed like it'd be fun, and I wanted to try that with the top hat and all that. Technically, I've not finished it yet. The Chalice dungeons were trying my patience. So, yeah, but it's pretty much done, at least what
Okay.
I can do right now. But yeah, I just thought it'd be cool to dress up like that and mess around, kind of RP it a little bit, get into the feel of it. I still didn't get to do it as much as I wanted to. Like I wanted to RP kind of more with it, but it's good practice for the grand unveiling of Ribbit McFrog's majestic journey. You know?
The ribbon cutting.
Yeah.
I think Celeste was the first thing I saw you play.
Oh,
And
okay.
that was more in the kind of because you do play some of those more speedrunny games or, you play the randomizer games and that sort of thing, more challenge style stuff.
Hmm.
Besides that side of things, when you're looking more at the games that promote engagement with the community, like what sorts of games do you find lend themselves to that?
At least for me, and I have seen this as trends for like some other streamers as well, is that if you have games that have plenty of downtime between more intensive sections, like Sea of Thieves is a perfect example of that, where you might be sailing the seas looking for other pirates or like on your way
Hmm.
to like some sort of thing if you're doing voyages or something, and there might be basically nothing going on for a bit other than the spray of the sea and the rocking
Yeah,
of the
right.
waves and stuff. And so it's a lot easier at that point to engage and interact with the chat. And then when it gets pretty intensive, well, you kind of have to hold off until you get that lull again. But it's pretty good for that sort of a thing. And generally, if you can put on a show, especially like in some sort of PvP thing, if you're pretty decent at it, it can be entertaining. And heck, even if you make mistakes and then figure out how to improvise on the fly, it's kind of like a Jack Sparrow moment, really. But
Yeah, right.
so you got that. And then if you have games that you're so familiar with that you can autopilot it. So like Ocarina of Time Randomizer, I'll externalize a lot of my
Hmm.
thoughts for like the puzzles and stuff. I basically have the entire game memorized, so I can just run it on autopilot essentially whenever I'm, talking to folks. That kind of helps. Or even like if I'm going through Dark Souls and not, if I'm going through it, but going through it in like a more speedy way, I'm used to
Hmm.
the route enough to where I'm basically can run on autopilot with it. Those sorts of things are good. And then also, if you're doing some content, now this technically wouldn't function as games, but like Twitch
Hmm.
sings would be a good thing, for example, because it's
Right.
basically like going to a karaoke bar and you can. It has natively, I think, things where folks can vote on like what you do or like some sort of modifier and stuff. So it's a good way to like get folks involved with the process. And then I would say the types that don't do as well as far as like chat engagement would be concerned
Yeah.
would be games with either a frequent amount of like intense puzzle solving where basically you're having to use your brain a lot on a regular basis because you're going to be busy trying to think through the puzzle, and so it's kind of hard to like interact with the chat. I mean, you could do it to an extent if you're one of those who are willing to like put it out to the chat of, hey, what do you think, or something like that. But if you're wanting to like try to figure it out yourself for a bit, then it's a little harder because you're having to dedicate mental processes to that. And then also games that are rich in story and dialogue. Now, like Skies of Arcadia, for example, I've been through it before. There are folks who are watching who have not. Some of them I don't even think heard of the game before, so they didn't know about it.
This is the first time I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, so for them, it's a new experience. But since it's not for me, it's a little easier for me to engage with the chat, which is why I kind of went with like making funny voices for the stuff. Some of them kind of fit better than others, and some of them are just hilarious. And some of them were unintended and just kind of roll with it, like Ica being Mickey Mouse, for example. That sort of a thing you can still turn into being engaging. But if it's, especially if it's like a story game that it's your first time going through it as well, you're going to be really engaged with trying to see what's going on along
Right.
with everybody else. And you're also wanting to keep quiet if it's something that has spoken dialogue because you don't want to talk over the story beats and miss it. And trying to find that equilibrium can be a bit of a challenge sometimes,
Right.
where sometimes it might be good to talk while it's happening if there's like a small lull and you can throw something out real quick. Those are kind of, they can be harder to engage with chat on and generally are, but there's times where it can work too. So that's kind of what I've noticed.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, oh. Oh, I'm so on edge right now. I'm so on edge.
It's interesting because have talked to folks that have told me they like to watch people play a game for the first time. And I think I'm very much the same way too, because I like that element of surprise. I like watching a streamer play a game for the first time, play a big part, a big surprise or something like that, and seeing their reaction. But it's interesting the way that you're saying that is if you know what's coming, you can kind of pace the way that you handle the conversation, that handle your engagement with the chat.
Yeah, both definitely have their upsides and downsides for sure. Downside for a blind experience mainly being if you get a bunch of folks that are of questionable character who want to spoil everything.
Yeah, right. Do you ever have a lot of problems with that?
Not really. I've had some folks be a little spoilery, but
Okay.
I could understand in the context that it was them being excited and letting that get the better of
Yeah,
them.
right.
Just 5 cents. He goes by Sale in a lot of other areas, but his Twitch name is just
Okay.
5 cents. He's really big on Horizon Zero Dawn. Wanted to talk with me about what happened in it, and I hadn't played it for years. Finally started it, and he was super pumped and was already kind of technically spoiling things because he was so excited, but it was kind of spoiling more, not so much story-wise, but like, oh, don't forget this and that. And so I had to be like, let's calm it down.
Slow your roll, yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, I understood what he was getting at. I haven't really run into anybody who's been malicious about it yet, so that's good. I'm sure it'll happen eventually, but so far so good.
Certainly when I was playing the Dark Souls games, there was folks that were just falling over themselves to say, "No, you idiot! Use this item, put this stat on," and they're right.
Yeah.
I probably would have done better if I followed their advice, but I like fucking it up for myself sometimes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
When I first reached out to you about coming on the show, I had said that I wanted to talk to you about how you engage with your chat and how successful it is and how much I admire you for it. At that time, you had kind of said, "Well, no, it hasn't always been that way, or you don't always feel that way." Like, what kind of struggles did you have with that kind of engagement early on?
I was doing like Ocarina of Time randomizers at the time when I first started like actually getting more involved with like chatting with folks on Twitter and stuff like that. Because I mean, before that, basically, I went unnoticed for the most part. If you're not putting yourself out there and folks don't know about you, then how do they know to come check you out? And then also, that was a point in time where they didn't have the sorting feature for being like, hey, sort from lowest to highest first
Right.
on Twitch. So the more they had to scroll down, the less likely they were to find you. And then also with Ocarina of Time Randomizer, a lot of the folks who came in at that point in time were lurkers. So they mainly were lurking and trying to watch more skilled play and like pick up tips and stuff like that. There were certain things where it was like maybe I was starting to have folks who would want to engage in the chat more often, and then like the next stream it'd be pretty silent. And
Right.
it's easy to let that get in your head and make you wonder, oh, am I a lot worse than what I think I am, or are people not interested anymore? And sometimes it might be because people aren't interested anymore, and that's just how some folks are.
Yeah, right.
The biggest things that I did with that, first of all, is self-reflection. I mean, you can talk about all these other tips and stuff like that, but sometimes folks aren't willing to take an honest look at themselves. And I don't get to watch as much of my VODs as I would like, but I do try to at least catch some of it where I can, especially if I feel like I wasn't so hot on a particular stream, just to go back and watch, or if I feel like I did really well. So that way I can see what really worked, keep doing that and like build upon it. And then also look and see where I could have improved. Like I know there was one time with the Sea of Thieves stream where it didn't seem like it was as active as it had been for a bit. And I thought I was being pretty engaged. And when I went back and watched certain sections of the VOD, I at first didn't realize it was the section I was looking for because I was completely silent for like 10 minutes straight. And
Really?
I thought I was talking during that point, but I was expressing that stuff in my head and didn't realize I wasn't
Oh my god.
externalizing it.
Okay.
So that had me double back on, okay, I need to make sure I'm very mindful on making sure I'm talking out loud and stuff like that. And that's a big thing because folks aren't going to be as interested in engaging with you if, well, you're not externalizing your thoughts or asking general questions, which was another thing that I've still am bad with sometimes, but I've been working to improve on it, is getting into the habit of just asking like very general open-ended questions that might be something that anyone listening, if they want to answer, that it would invite them to answer but not feel pressured to do so, which is great because you avoid calling out lurkers, which I feel is a big no-no, while
Yes.
also encouraging that chat interaction. there's that. And then remembering to ask up follow-up questions, either when you see it in the chat or from that general question prodding, like if you see something interesting that they mention that they are good at doing, or something interesting that happened in their life, or they express an opinion about something that you find interesting, to ask the follow-up question, because generally folks like to talk about themselves and stuff like that, and encouraging that sort of a thing helps to foster that conversation. And then, of course, the channel points has been pretty great when we figured out a way to utilize that. So,
Yeah, I'm still struggling with this for my channel. I don't really know how to use it. You've done some great stuff with that. I know Roxas has done some great stuff with that. A few people I watch. How are you feeling about channel points? Do you think they really work for you in terms of encouraging engagement?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I'd set up the channel points, the amount of interaction I'd seen was much more than previously. And then also, there was a point where I was trying to dial in the points to a proper setting enough so that people would want to use them, but not so
Hmm.
much that it would get like constantly spammed, or, they could just
Right.
bankroll like 15,000 points and just drop a bunch of things on one go. I wanted to make it have a cost, but not be so steep. And I kind of went a little too far in the other direction. They barely got redeemed at all. And the couple of streams where that was like that, I noticed a marked decrease in the amount of folks who were like engaged in the chat. And there could be other variables involved with that as well. Maybe I wasn't quite as good at engaging other folks with those streams. It's hard to say. But it definitely seemed like there was some sort of correlation there, because when I dialed the numbers into where they are now, which seems to be a pretty good sweet spot, the interaction went up again. They seem to do the trick. I
No
think the
kidding.
biggest
Okay.
thing aside from the pricing is also making sure that you find unique, interesting ways to utilize them. Even if you take inspiration from something that someone else is doing, and so
Hmm.
you're technically doing something similar, but finding your own twist for it. Or
Yeah.
like some of the more successful ones that I've had, I basically took inspiration from Mountain of Madness, the board game.
Oh, okay.
Some of that's the secret. The game Mountains of Madness, not to get on too much of a tangent, but basically there's a social aspect to it, as far as you have to coordinate resources and you have to meet the exact demands on the card or you fail. Whatever madness it says you do, you have to do it that way. You have some that are as harmless as turn into the shy woo girl, essentially, and can't interact with folks until they look away from you, to you have to make a hand puppet and you have to interact with folks as though you are the hand puppet. And if they try to look you in the eye and acknowledge you, you have to ignore them. They have to look at your hand.
I can totally picture this stuff in your
So
channel. That's totally lines up with the kind of stuff that you do, yeah.
yeah. So it was a nice creative outlet that I was able to put my own twist on, and it's been pretty successful. And what we do is just drop the other one in the water as well in front, so it's hidden. You can't see it. Oh, well, there we go. That's what I was afraid of. Oh my god, that's the stream value, man. All that shit.
You had mentioned that the engagement went up quite a bit when you introduced the points. Do you find that it's encouraging new folks to engage with you? Are there new folks spending those points, or is it a lot of the regulars?
Both. Mostly,
Yeah.
it's mostly been regulars, but some of the folks who were new also wanted to do it, and then some of the folks who were new became regulars and would
Hmm.
still enjoy doing that. Doppio is a good example of that. She came around when I was doing my lore. The main reason that she came to the stream was the hat, so there was that. But
Oh
then
yeah.
she stuck
Okay.
around after that. That's kind of going back to like the whole props thing that I was wearing before, stuff like that. But that's one of those things that helps you stand out, and channel points can be that too.
So you've been really good at this lately. I've seen a lot of folks that have a lot of new folks to your channel are becoming regulars now. I think it's something that a lot of folks struggle with. There are a lot of streamers have a hard time with, where new people come and go. You've got your core regulars, but they're the ones that kind of stay for the most part. How do you encourage those new folks to stick around? What are you doing that's making that successful?
Showing creativity is a big thing, especially with it being saturated as it is right now with Twitch. You have to stand out. You have to do something, or be something, or offer something that is unique and is going to be something that they're like, wow, I can't find this anywhere else, so I'm going to
Hmm.
come and check this out. And oftentimes it's a combination of things, because I mean, a lot of things basically have already been done. It's just a matter of artists figuring out their unique expression for it. And you're going to have folks that come and go. Some decide to stay, some don't, and you have to be all right with any of that. And as long as you gave it your best shot, that's fine. And even when you give it your best shot, some folks are still going to pack up and go. And that's just how it goes. So that's the big thing, would be just giving it your best efforts, finding
Right.
your niche, finding what works for you. Like, I feel like I'm going to be incorporating costumes and stuff more in streams because, one, it sticks out more. Two, I have fun doing it. So it can be a little pricey. So that's one thing to consider.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so you finding your niche, making sure you're giving it your best effort, and just being willing to engage, like making sure you're mindful about engaging with folks. It's been said before, but like if you have someone new show up and you don't interact with them in like the first 5 seconds or so, they're out. The vast majority of the time, that'll be the
Right.
case. Unless you are like playing a game that you are a god at and you don't necessarily have to talk to other individuals because they're just wowed by your skill at what's going on.
Right.
But for a lot of us, that's not
That
the
ain't
case.
me. Yeah.
Thinking long term, like when you have a larger viewership and if you have a more active chat, you're going to miss stuff. You're not necessarily going to be able to stop and interact with every single person, because once it gets to a certain point, that's all you would be doing. And I don't mean interacting like, a healthy way of like having that ebb and flow. I mean, just kind of like the whole, if you were to acknowledge followers, once you reach a certain point where you would have so many followers coming at you on a regular basis that your entire stream would be, thank you so-and-so for following, thank you so-and-so for following, and nobody wants to watch that.
Yeah. Right.
There's that to consider as well. But I think showing that you understand that ebb and flow and you want to engage with people is the big thing as far as that's concerned. And then, of course, having a welcoming chat also helps. And I'm very fortunate to have the folks that I do, that I've been able to actually foster a community, because for a while, I didn't feel like that was necessarily going to be the case, and was concerned if I would ever make that happen. I understood having it organic is the best way. But
Right.
I guess part of me sometimes was like, I don't think I'm interesting enough that people want to stick around. And then the big thing is enjoy each other's company. And I'm seeing that now. And it's
Right.
so awesome to see, is when people are just as happy and excited to interact with each other as they are with you, the streamer. That's something special. The folks that I have that are regulars are very warm and welcoming to anyone who shows up. There are times, of course, when you develop in jokes or inside references, because that's just how things go. Having folks being able to understand and keep in mind that, hey, if we make all these inside references and stuff and don't bother like explaining them or like inviting the new people into it to understand what's going on, they're going to feel like an outsider and kind of feel alienated, and they're probably not going to stick around.
Your regulars they're very welcoming to anyone coming in. At least anytime that I'm hanging out there. Anyone that's new that shows up, they're kind of welcomed in pretty quickly. I was going to ask you if you found your regulars to be intimidating to new folks, but from our conversation, it sounds like it's much more of a strength.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, hell, sometimes they see the folks before I do. And I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going? And like seeing their welcome is what has me realize, oh, somebody new showed up. All right, let me
Let
go
me
check
read
that
10
list.
lines back. Yeah. Well, I think part of that feeling, part of that welcoming kind of environment, to me, it stems from the fact that you're pretty open about yourself. You're pretty open about any kind of struggles, any kind of good news, bad news that's coming up in your life. You're open about your family, to an extent. Is that something that happened over time, or was that from day one?
It's something that I wanted to do from the start, but it was
Mm-hmm.
something that wasn't necessarily able to be done until a certain point. I did go in with the mindset of what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
There are some folks like Dr. Disrespect, for example. He
Right.
performs as that character. That's not actually who he is. And to an extent, we all have that, this is my work face. This is my at home face. This is my stream face. But for me, I very much wanted to go in with, this is who I am. What you see is my authentic self. I may throw on jokes to be a smart ass with certain things or something like that, but that's kind of part of who I am anyway. So you're still getting what I am. Part of what ends up happening, even if like something bad happens, I don't want the stream to become my pity party or about me too much. I share what goes on in my life in part because that's the sort of environment I wanted to make, was an environment where people could feel like they could be honest about themselves and about what's going on in their life.
Right.
And if they wanted to share like hardships they were having or whatever, that they could do that they would have folks there who are empathetic and would be willing to be a part of a support network if they needed that. And if I'm not willing to do that and be the example for that, why would other folks be willing to do that as well? It would be unreasonable for me to expect that. But that was something that was very important to me from the beginning. I always just wanted to have my heart on my sleeves, if you will. And especially because I'm like that in life in general, it's very hard for me to hide if something's upsetting me. So why bother trying to hide it if it's going to be obvious what's going on? Thanks again, everyone. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. So, but I'll see y'all on Thursday for some more of the best Final Fantasy in the fucking series. I need contact. Fight me, Nother. And I'll see you next stream.
The topic of mental health seems pretty important to you online. You talk about it on Twitter, you talk about it on your streams. Is that a conscious effort? Like, have you been pushing to bring that topic to the forefront, or is it just because it interests you, you're passionate about it, so it comes up naturally?
Well, both.
Yeah, right,
I
okay.
feel like my answers are both, but it is
Yeah.
true. It's funny you say that, though, because I actually don't feel like I do it enough. And sometimes I've worried that people will think that I am lying about my interest in mental health, I guess in part
Really?
because, well, mainly because like sometimes it doesn't come up all that much. And then also because I haven't been able to have like dedicated mental health talking streams so far. That kind of goes back to before I had a regular chat that would flow enough to where it would be able to support that kind of a thing. I was like, is this sort of thing even going to work? Because if folks aren't
Mhm.
interested in engaging with it, it's kind of problematic. I mean, sure, I can share my side of things, but that's only going to go so far. I feel like now I'm at a point where I could start scheduling regular health mental streams, and I actually am going to try to do that. That was one of the big reasons why I even got into streaming in the first place. Aside from like the need to be creative, for
Okay.
me, it's a very big need. But also because I saw how it was with She Snaps. She Snaps is a Destiny streamer actually who really transitioned into a lot of streams, mostly about like various mental health topics. It first started with her just being very candid about some of the really crappy stuff that she had happen in her life and providing a place where other people could feel comfortable to do the same. I just saw how healing it was for people
Hmm.
and how powerful that could be. And I was like, I want that. I want to be able to contribute and do something like that. So from the get-go, it was always very much an important part of doing the stream. And then also suffering myself from general anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder is also a very strong motivator because when you personally experience the private hell that is a very, very major low to the point where, trigger warning, to the point where you were suicidal at certain points or had
Hmm.
suicidal ideations at certain points, you want to do whatever you can to help other people not be stuck in that kind of a hell as well. Like it will drive you.
When it comes to the topic of mental health, it's pretty divisive with the community online, with the Twitch community, with the Twitter community. And I can kind of see some of the other side of it too, where some folks are worried that there's people online who are acting as almost as a professional or as a mentor or something along those lines when maybe they're not qualified for that.
Hmm.
It's a topic that folks have to navigate around, and you do it pretty decently. I haven't seen any situations where you're overstepping or where you're being inappropriate. How do you navigate that?
Experiencing the mental health field personally, it kind of helped me with knowing certain things and where to look, or like kind of having that training by default as far as the empathy training and what is healthy to say and what might seem okay to say but is actually going to be harmful in the long run.
Right.
So I mean that kind of helps, but there is definitely a thing to be concerned about. And I think for me at least the biggest things would be the folks who have tried to like hawk or peddle their stream as an acceptable substitute for professional treatment, which is just reckless and disgusting because they're
Right.
basically taking advantage of people who are in a vulnerable place. That is just horrible. That can have some very, very bad consequences. I have experimented with trying to find that proper balance because there is a point where it might get so intense with the topics that you discussed that unless it was something that was announced from the beginning and folks know completely without a shadow of a doubt what they're getting into and that
Mhm.
this is going to be some heavy shit for a little bit, you probably would notice some sort of like dip in viewership or something like that, or less interest in that sort of a thing because they are coming into something that might be a bit more emotionally intense than what they were anticipating. But going from that back to the original point that I had there was that trying to treat someone clinically, even if you have the training, the individual who's talking with you may not be from a place that you're licensed to practice in if you were
Sure.
like a licensed counselor or something like that. And so it would be very unethical for you to offer that kind of a service.
Sure, but even folks that aren't, they're not necessarily offering to do it professionally or as clinically, like you say,
Hmm.
but there's certainly folks that offer advice
Yeah.
when maybe they're not so qualified to.
Yeah, and that can be a dangerous thing. That's something that's like it's a real gray area because if you are properly trained on it, the training would often tell you to a lot of times not offer any sort of advice
Yeah,
or
right.
not much. It's just basically would be being an empathetic listener, helping someone processing through their stuff, and then maybe making certain suggestions as a third party, like outside observer. As far as like giving actual advice, a lot of the times that can end up being unhealthy or backfiring. If it's something you're interested in, but you don't feel like you might be trained enough for it, it might be worth your while going out and getting some training for it, because there are courses that are available that it isn't going to be like an intensive graduate program to be a licensed counselor or like a psychiatrist or something, like kind of like a CPR and first aid.
Right, okay.
For folks who aren't medical professionals, who aren't EMT staff, you can still get first aid training and CPR training. It's kind of like that, basically. It gives you enough of an idea of knowing what is helpful and what isn't without having the expectation of professional treatment.
And what's professionally harmful. That makes sense. And, going back to what you said earlier, I do think there is some folks that are exploiting the topic or the concept of mental health when they're streaming. I feel like I'm coming off overly negative about it, and I don't mean to. Folks like you are, I think it's a good reason why people engage with you, and because you're so mindful of being respectful and not overstepping. It's good to see that there's that side of it on top of the folks that don't have as great of motivations, we'll say.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I don't necessarily take it as negative. I think it's good that folks are cautious about that sort of a thing, because there is some real damage that can be done.
How do you find streaming affects your own mental health?
Overall, it's great.
Yeah. Okay.
Overall, it's great. Like, especially when I had that year where I was full time streaming, there was some stresses that I had. Most of it was self induced because of my own
Okay.
goals, not so much induced by the stream. But it was the happiest I had been personally in quite some time. For me, the traditional, the traditional 9 to 5 or whatever, for me, it's a prison. Like,
Hmm.
not everybody is that way, and that's fine. But I realize now about myself that I am the type of temperament, I am the type of person where that sort of a thing, it might as well be a jail sentence. I very much have to be creative, or very much have to have professions that allow me to be more flexible.
You work your ass off though. Like you're talking about a 9 to 5 as a prison, but I mean, on top of how many nights a week are you streaming here?
Well, not as much as I would want to, honestly, but three
A few
times,
times a week. Yeah.
3 times a
Okay.
week. Yeah.
School,
Hmm.
your family life. Like
Hmm.
there's got to be a balance here. That's I want to say it's difficult to maintain, but maybe you're doing it better than a lot of us
Oh,
are.
no. I would say I'm terrible at it, honestly, but there definitely is a balancing act that's involved with that. And especially if you're a partner in a relationship. If you're single, it's a
Hmm.
lot easier.
Yeah.
Sometimes it
Right.
can go to the other extreme where you might be spending way too much time, and to the point where it's not healthy for you. But it's definitely important to have that stuff in balance. And that was something that I've gotten better with now. But it was something that was a bit of a troublesome issue there, where my partner had started feeling a little neglected. And
Hmm.
so I had to readjust the way I had things balanced. And then it also doesn't help that since I'm extremely introverted, and social interactions and other stuff like that can be very draining. It's not that I find them
Yeah.
bad experiences. It's just I can only tolerate so much, and then I need time for myself to recharge, or else I'm going to be tapped out. I envy people who don't have that.
Yeah. Right.
There are some things that I've seen, and I think some of it is more systematic of there are only so many ways that you can come up with quantitative measures of success, as far as like on Twitch's end, what they're looking at,
Right.
especially when you're going for an affiliate goal. It's looking at
Hmm.
followers, and then when you're an affiliate and you're looking at being eligible to apply for partnership, they're generally looking for concurrent 75 average viewership maintained. With the whole metrics thing, it's easy to let the numbers metrics cause you to like not think you're good enough, or
Sure.
that, oh no, people have realized how much of a fraud I am, because imposter syndrome is a thing. And I have dealt with that at times, but I've let that get in my head at times, and it's a big reason why I don't ever have the viewer count on while I'm live. I don't even
Hold on. Hold
I
on.
don't
You don't have the viewer count on when you're live?
Nope. So I have no idea how many
You're
people are
full of
watching.
it. You're lying to me.
I have no idea how many people are watching.
Okay,
I
teach me
did
how to
have it
do
up
this.
for a little bit to try to watch trends, but I noticed
Yeah.
sometimes it would mess with me and cause me to ultimately not do as good, because I was getting
Really?
distracted. So I just turned it off. I don't even look at the active viewer list. So if you're lurking, I'm generally going to have no idea that you're there. unless unless I just happen to check it for whatever reason, and
Yeah, right.
It's weird because I've heard some partners talk about it as though it's a pretty reliable list to see, but there was a period of time where it was like janky as hell. So
You talking about the list of viewers?
yeah, yeah.
I still find it very janky.
Yeah, see, that's my experience too. So that's part of the reason why I don't even bother with it. The benefits by far outweigh the tolls that I've experienced. I've gotten to meet fantastic people from all walks of life, from different points on the globe, and I've made some fantastic friends with some of those people whom I otherwise would never have met, or very likely would have never met. So that being able to bring me together, and I include you in that as well, Nother.
Aw.
seriously though, you all have been great. You and Clutch and Bon, I'm very fortunate. Like I said, along with the other folks who are regulars in the community, I'm very fortunate to have the folks that I do. That tying into another thing, which was knowing that I was part of like building a community with that, and like reaching that point that I talked about before, where you could start the stream up, give it enough time to where you're having to like take care of some stuff in the background or whatever, and you just see folks chatting with each other, and it's like blowing up before you even get started because they're excited to catch the stream, but they're also excited to be able to hang with each other and, you know, are chatting with each other and just kind of catching up on stuff. And that is super special, and it always is very heartwarming for me when I see that. And then knowing that I have made a difference in other people's lives, whether that is something like technically making a difference because I've brought people together that I met separately who didn't know each other. Because I'm pretty sure
Right,
like,
yeah.
an example would be you and Avery Sados.
I know Avery because you rated her stream. She was in your chat one day, something like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. And like, so I was
And she's one of my favorite streamers now, yeah.
and I was part of that experience, or part of making that happen. And it's really cool and humbling to see that. Then also just simply that this community like ends up being a part of my support network as well. When things have gone rough for me at points in times, like knowing that I could come and stream and folks were excited to be there and like having a good time with them and with what we were doing. And it's part of my support network.
Well, Pilgrim, let me just say, my life is better because I saw you in that top hat.
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you, man.
Pilgrim, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for having me on, Nother.
Where can people find you online?
You have the Discord, which is basically just a link right now. So hopefully there's something in the description.
I'll put it in the show notes, yeah.
Okay. There's that. I'm on Twitter, Wandering Pilgrim, all one word, no underscore or anything like that. Twitch, Wandering_Pilgrim. And that's WNDRiNG _PiLGRM. Gotta specify that because a lot of the vowels are missing except for a couple because of aesthetic reasons. So yeah, and it's that same spelling for the Twitter, just no underscore, no space. YouTube, it's Wandering Pilgrim, but with a space in between that. But there's only one video up there right now because I haven't really uploaded stuff.
Awesome. Well, I'll have all the links to your social media, to your YouTube, and all that in the show description. Thanks again, man.
That.
Appreciate it. You get to stick around for the speed run?
Yeah, of course.
All right, let's do it. Big thanks to Pilgrim for joining me for the interview. You can catch him and his goofy mascot a few nights a week on Twitch. Check out his channel. Coming up, we get a quick tip from Joey Freeze, but first we put Pilgrim through the speed run. All right, Pilgrim, you ready for the speed run?
As ready as I can be.
Alright, we got 10 questions here for you. I want the quickest answers you got. Don't think about them. Just give them to me, alright?
Alright.
Alright, here we go. Alright, first question. Who has the best fast food french fries?
Wendy's.
Oh, I was gonna say, Wendy's is amazing. People like McDonald's, they're crazy. Wendy's is better. What's the best generation for Pokemon?
Oh, well, I'm gonna say Gen 2.
Who's your favorite Zooter streamer?
Oh, geez. I guess Spike Vegeta. He's very entertaining. He's also pretty good at it. So,
What's the best movie from the 90s?
oh god, best movie from the '90s. Fifth Element. Why not?
Oh my god, what a good... Did you see Valerian?
No.
Just keep it that way. We'll say that.
Okay.
You know what
Wipe it from my mind. Gotcha.
There you go. What was your first pet?
My first pet was a dog.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Were you a kid, or was that when you were older?
It was when I was very, very young. I don't
Oh, yeah?
really remember
Who was your favorite elementary school teacher?
Oh, jeez. Mr. London.
What was his thing?
Well, he was just 4th grade in general.
Okay.
But he was a really cool dude. Very knowledgeable guy. Very, very good dude. Cared about his students. So.
What game hasn't been remade yet that you're dying to see one for?
Well, I'll say, I guess Final Fantasy VIII, like the remake treatment, like they did with FF7.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily the episodic thing, depending on how that goes, but I don't know. Experiencing the world in FF8, and because I'm a sucker for FF8, it would be pretty cool.
You know, I had no idea what you were going to say when I wrote that question, but as soon as the words came out of my mouth, I knew what you were going to say. I was like, oh, yeah, right. All right, what's the game with the best soundtrack?
Oh, God. Chrono Cross. I'll say that.
Oh, wow. Did you play that?
Oh, God, yeah.
So Wisp is going through Chrono Trigger right now, so I've been thinking
saw
about
that.
playing Cross again.
Ooh, nice.
Well, I've never actually played all the way through it.
I've never even played Chrono Trigger before, so I've had to avoid a stream because it's one I want to actually do at some point. So
It's a good game.
yeah, that's what
What's
I hear.
your favorite Soulsborne boss out of any of the games?
Spoilers in case anybody's watching the lore thing.
Yep.
Orphanokos. Just the lore and everything behind it, and I mean he fights you with his shrimp placenta.
Oh my god, I think I missed that one.
Yeah, the thing that he carries around and tries to smack you with like a yo-yo, it's his placenta.
Oh my god.
Yep.
Alright. What's the first song that you learned on guitar?
Oh god, I'm trying to remember.
Or like the first one that you really wanted to learn?
The first one I really wanted to learn would have been, I guess, Banana Pancakes from Jack Johnson.
Was it, were you trying to impress somebody with it?
I wanted to have it
taking
in
that
the
as a
chamber,
yes.
ready to go.
Part of the tool. Yeah. Nice. I think for me it was Glycerine by Bush. That was like
that's
the
a
one.
good one.
Oh
That's a good
man.
I couldn't remember if it was that or Stairway to Heaven. I did spend a week straight learning Stairway to Heaven to the point where I could sing and play at the same time. So
Oh my god. You're well beyond me. Alright, sir, well you're not very fast, but we got through the questions. Thank you very much.
I try to keep it as condensed as I can.
And now a quick tip about streaming.
If you want to make sure that your stream is going to be of good quality and that you're not going to be dropping packets all over the place, as they say, you want to go into OBS, wherever your stream key is, and you want to add the following thing. Bandwidth test, one word, equals true. And use that as your stream key and run a test stream first. And I would say let it sit for about 3 minutes and make sure you're not dropping too many frames. And then after you've seen that everything's okay, then you can take that extra thing that I just told you to put in out of your stream key and stream once more.